Hello, and welcome to Moments with Michael. Today, we're going to be talking about self care. So, self care is one of those words that I didn't really understand what it meant at first. And as presented to adults, like it's a reminder for us to not let stress take over our lives. But with our little ones, especially our exceptional little ones, self care is vitally important. So, self care always starts off as something that we do for our little ones. And this example shows quite amusing an example here. So, as cute as those moments are, like as our little ones get older, like we do want them to take a little more initiative and assert a little more independence to start to do some things for themselves. It's vital that they do that. So, the thing about self care for kids that I didn't really consider until I thought about it is that self care on their part like takes things off our plate, right? Like we don't have to work quite as hard as we used to when they were teeny tiny in order to take care of our kids. But it also does something very important for them in that it enhances independence, promotes confidence, and it improves their overall quality of life because then they're not dependent on others so much. So here's a little clip of my son Gabriel holding himself up by his arms for the first time. I love that little smile at the end, that little, like, yeah, I did it. At least that's how I interpret it. So, understanding individual abilities and needs, I'm going to go back to um, a concept that I talked about in earlier moments with Michael, and that any statements or ways that we can engage with our little ones that foster awareness and encourage them to problem solve all go into that rubric of asserting independence and self care. So, getting my son to notice, like, do you notice how those rocks are slippery? Um, that's encouraging him to notice that, but also think about the choices that he's going to make. And the problem solving aspect, like, what's your plan if you climb that slippery rock or cross that log over the river? Like, what is your plan exactly? So, engaging in a consistent dialogue with our little ones to get them to not only be aware of their surroundings, but think about the consequences of them really goes into self care. Breaking down tasks. Now, this is something that we have done in a number of different contexts. Um, Teaching self care skills incrementally, focusing on one step at a time, can be vital for our exceptional little ones. So here's a picture from my son's bedroom. And at the time, we secured him in there at night because he was eloping. But we had a potty in there. And so we broke down the pottying steps into 18 different visuals with a little caption for each, like waking up, taking off that diaper, and wiping in the front because he will usually have soiled the diaper at that time, wiping the back, throwing the wipes away, um, wiping your legs a little bit to make sure we get some of that overspill, and then sitting on that potty, standing up, and then wiping again, and then getting a pair of underwear, pulling them up in the front, pulling them up in the back, and then you're done. And I've done this in a number of different contexts. In fact, using other pictures that we made for martial arts instruction uh, were pretty helpful for Gabe because the teacher was saying, like, kick with your right foot. And Gabriel didn't know really the difference between right foot, left foot at that time. So we made little picture cards like right foot, that one doesn't belong in there, left foot, right arm, left arm. So that was one way to sort of break down like martial arts techniques for him. And also this little PEX deck that I kind of added on to. It's a real basic deck, like giving visuals and like holding hands, covering mouth. And then I added on like activities that we typically do in our house. At that time, I think I made this about 5 years ago when he was 3. So getting food, playing with friends, going to the gym, getting a haircut, playing instruments, like breaking down those tasks into like those little pictures and captions, like really help to make something that could be overwhelming. It may not seem to be to us, but for a little one, it can be overwhelming. So breaking it down is very important, or has been very important for us in Gabriel's self-care journey. Visual supports and social stories. The don't play with food social story was one that I adapted from one with a different title because eating in an orderly, clean way is still something that we are working on at 8.5 years old. Um, and following social stories, they're all over the internet. You can print them out most times for free. There are paid sites, but you can find them for free. They're meant to be read aloud at first, and then sort of a guided reading into more having our little one read it to us. And that's helped cut down on the problem with playing with food and getting it places where it doesn't belong. And in this first photo here, this is actually the sign that we have on all of our exterior doors right now in our home. And it sort of represents like the last step in our elopement safety journey, and that we started with flipping those door locks around, as I talked about in our safety presentation, and ended with this sign that lays some positive choices out for Gabriel, and also outlines consequences that will attach to failure to do certain things. So if I ask to go outside and mommy or daddy says yes, I can go outside to play. If I open the door and run outside without asking, I will have to play inside for 30 minutes before I can ask to go outside. If mommy or daddy tell me I cannot go outside and I run outside, I will have to come back inside and play for 30 minutes before I can ask to go outside. So that has been helpful too, because we've had to enforce that. And a couple times, him sitting there for half an hour, he got the point, and now he asks when he wants to go outside. Modeling and demonstration have been very important for my boy. Starting with the bottom picture, he really dislikes like having stuff around his neck or even anywhere on his head for any length of time. But I got him to put on that tie by saying like, "Oh, look at the way Daddy gets dressed for school or work," and school picture day or something. And he was so excited about that, like doing like Daddy does, that kind of encouraged him to put on that tie that morning. And when we're walking outside during the day, like I will tend to wear a big wide brim hat to keep the sun out of my eyes. So I'll give him one and a pair of sunglasses. And because he's averse to having things like on his face and on his head, like he tends to take them off halfway through the walk. But I'll kind of play it off with humor and say, like, what'll make this hat work a lot better if it's on your head. And he thinks that's so funny. So we go over that. And here in the grocery store, it's only really in the last year that I've let him out of the cart when he became too big of a monster to even put in the front toddler seat anymore. Like I'd sit his butt in the basket and wheel him around. But now in the last year, I've started to try to involve him in the process of like, hey, push that cart for daddy. You and Alora are going to help daddy shop, and like kind of gives him something constructive to do. So I got as far as encouraging active participation in like self-care routines, like had a very good question from a parent a couple weeks ago. She said, my son will not pick up his toys, and if I push the issue, he will throw a fit. And I said, if you considered something like this, the 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 behavioral technique is really summed up pretty well by the sign here that says, you left it out, mom picked it up. She's got your stuff, you're out of luck. To get it back, must do a chore. Again, it's yours, just like before. So instead of engaging in a power struggle with a young, exceptional person, you are instead showing them passively what the consequences of not taking care of their own stuff are. So if Gabriel doesn't pick up his toys, instead of engaging in a why didn't you do what I asked you type scenario, which is often not productive, I'll just go pick up the toys myself and I'll hold on to them maybe. And a little time passes, and then he says, where are my toys? And I say, oh, daddy picked them up because you didn't. You want them back? Well, then I need you to pick up, you know, such and such, or put these clothes in the laundry or something. So that way I'm always redirecting back to a self-care task in order to receive the, I guess, the positive reinforcement of getting the stuff back. You know, don't be afraid to utilize any adaptive equipment or supports that can help your little one start to do self-care tasks for themselves. So we've had all the types of adaptive utensils with thick grips and comfort ribs on there to keep a better hold of them. The this electric toothbrush always kind of blows my mind when I'm thinking about it lately, because back when I used to get in the tub with him, it would be hand over hand every step of the self-care cleaning routine, including teeth brushing. And so I instituted a countdown so he knew how long he had to tolerate the feel of those bristles on his gums, because I know that that's a sticking point for him. But he now has adapted in the last couple months to wanting to get in the shower instead of the bath, and he wants to do more of this on his own, but he doesn't have the fine motor control to really like move the toothbrush around appropriately. So I thought, well, let's try this electric toothbrush. I couldn't believe that he tolerates it, and so every night now in the shower I hear him counting his countdown while he's doing his electric toothbrushing, and I'm so grateful. Developing routines and consistency, that's another good way to encourage self-care. And in the beginning, when you're trying to get that buy-in, you might want to consider what we did and offer those if-then statements. Like, for instance, if brushing teeth is one of those hang-ups that our little ones don't want to do, we might say, if you brush your teeth, then we can put on sunscreen and put on our shoes, pack our lunch, and go outside. So that way it kind of gives them something preferred to work towards, or tolerate the thing that they don't necessarily want to do as much. I think it's a good way to just avoid that power struggle any time you can, and it's reasonable to do so. Sensory friendly self-care has been important in our household as well, because this photo, I want to say it's 4 years old now. And Gabriel was in this period where he was really averse to water. He didn't want to get in water at all. And we found a way to overcome that was to make the bath experience novel. So we turned off the lights and we got these real cheap little floating tea lights. I can't remember where from. Amazon certainly would have something like that. And it really worked, because he was so interested in the way that the colored water shimmered and shined off everything that we forgot all about our water aversion. And to this day, we'll still talk about like, hey, can I take a sensory bath? And what that means is I'm going to turn off the bathroom lights and basically turn on a star projector to project thousands of green stars on the ceiling. But, whatever works. And it certainly did for him. Patience, encouragement, and positive reinforcement are very, very important along that self care journey. And they have been for my Gabriel. Important to remember that, like, those demands will change. Like, the list of things that we need to do will change depending on their age, time of year. Um, and anything you can do to get buy-in in those early stages, like having them put up a sticker on a chart to show that they did something for themselves, can be really motivating. Or picking the color of marker to draw your own star in the right column can be really, really cool for a kid. As always, I hit on collaborating with professionals, like seeking guidance from occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, pediatricians, and other medical professionals. Don't be afraid to pump them to troubleshoot situations with you, because you never know where you're going to find that inspiration that, I've never personally had stuff happen that was like, oh, an instant miracle, like that I did this thing, but it got me thinking in directions that I hadn't previously. And I think that's really helped. And a professional once told me, like, it's okay to have that floor mat that we've had now for 10 years sitting underneath his chair where he eats his meals, and it catches all those crumbs. So we're still doing that. But when we are done eating, like he is to take that mat and ball it up and shake it over the sink or outside. As always, I still have my Building Things at Home for an Exceptional Child video series. You can find that on the WCPS Parent Portal under Special Education and the Family Support Resource Center. And lastly, today I want to share our current shower routine, another 18 steps that now Gabriel is asserting independence enough to where he wants to shower by himself, which is fine. And we go through an 18-point shower routine, and he pretty much knows it by heart now. The only thing I still do monitor, because he wants to do the washing arms, armpit, belly, privates, butt, feet way too quickly and not getting anything really clean. So another thing is he doesn't want to put shampoo on the front of his hair for fear that the water is going to wash it into his eyes. So when I catch him going too quickly on his body or not soaping the front of his hair, right now it's just like, I'll say, like, Gabe, do you need me to come in there and help you? No, 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 no. So then he'll make a better effort in response to that question. So I say all that to say, like, don't give up, stay consistent. Like, once you start a routine, like, keep it going. And over time, you will start to see those victories rack up in the quest for self-care. All right. We'll catch you next time. And thank you so much for attending this Moments with Michael.